Blast me to Bermuda! It's time for the Mad Merlins unboxing of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium by Hachette Partworks and Games Workshop. Delivery 14. Hello everyone and welcome to another Mad Merlins unboxing. It took quite a few takes to get this, but here we are with the unboxing of Imperium Delivery 14. So here we have our usual plastic bag, and inside is our contents for this delivery, which is issues 51 to 54. So first off, we've got 51 with 2 pots of paint, 52 with the first half of our Triarch Stalker, 53 with the second half of our Triarch Stalker, and 54 with our Battle Sisters. This is a final frame. It's the same frame as the previous Battle Sister frame with 7 models, which I think was 46. Yes, 46. So we got 3 Battle Sisters, 2 Seraphim, 1 Archoflagellant, and 1 Repentia. And oops, spoilers. But right, that's our issues. There's no extra stuff this month, so we can get straight on into opening each issue. So we'll start at the beginning with issue 51. So the 2 paints we've got are Dawnstone and Powdered Witchflesh. This one could do with a bit of a shake. Sounds like it's one pretty thick lump inside. That's pretty common with the Powdered Witchflesh and even the Rakarth flesh colours. They do tend to clump up quite a lot, especially if they're in storage. But there we have Powdered Witchflesh and Dawnstone. And here we have our issue. So inside we learn about the Raven Guard, use our new paints, and we battle the Royal Court. So I'll have a quick flip through. So yeah, as I thought, we've got our data records for the Scorpec Lord, Plasmancer, and the Crypto Thralls. So we learn about Raven Guard, the Sons of Korax, War in the Scrap Heap. So we got a Death Corps of Krieg versus Orcs story based on the Kill Team set. So that'd be quite cool to actually read. And then we're using our new paints. So our Dawnstone is being used to highlight anywhere that's black or dark grey. So we've got the gun casings, chainsword casings, the camo cloak, the hair. Powdered Witchflesh is used on the tabards and purity seals on the Space Marines. And that's pretty much it. So it's a pretty short paint guide, but it's just showing you how things are done on the same standard models that we've always been doing them. So 2 sergeants, captain, librarian, and the lieutenant. Rules wise, we've got quite a few rules. So we've got the Scorpec Lords rule, the Plasmancers, and the Crypto Thralls rules. So we've got quite a lot of rules there. And we've got Unbound Destruction, so we are pitting the Scorpec Lord, Plasmancer, Crypto Thralls, Reanimator, 3 Scorpec Destroyers and the Plasma Sight, against the Canoness, 3 Seraphim, 7 Battle Sisters, 2 Archoflagellants, 3 Repentia, 1 Repentia Superior, Tepris Dominus, and 3 Catapon Destroyers. And we're using 2 mats, and it actually does show how we are supposed to set the terrain up, so that's a pretty cool setup actually. And I have recently finished my second set of Imperium terrain. I got fed up waiting for my paint, so I dug out an old red spray that I bought for an old project, but I didn't really like the spray. It's too terracotta-y looking, and it really overpowers any colours you put on top of it. It took me 4 layers of Mephiston Red to cover over. But moving on, we've got issue 52. So for our Necron players, this is one issue we've been looking forward to. So we've got the Triarch Stalker, which is one of the, no, not one of, it is the biggest model in the Necron collection that we are getting. And he is pretty impressive. This is our first proper vehicle, I believe, for the Necrons. So it will be nice that we finally have a lot of stuff that damages vehicles we'll actually be able to make use of. So that's the frame. And here's the issue. So we learn about the Imperial Knights, we learn about the Triarchs, and we use stratagems. So we also have the battle record for our Triarch Stalker. We learn about the Questors Imperialis, so these are the Imperial Knights. The different levels of the Triarch, so these are the personal bodyguard of the Silent King. So we've got the Praetorians, which are an alternate build for the Lich Guard. And then we've got the Stalkers, which is what we're using. So to build this, we must make sure we are building it in 3 sub-assemblies. So the weapons, the pilot, and the actual legs itself. It is important to note that there is a right and a wrong way for things to go. So make sure you have your square pegs on the bottom. This is where our guns mount into. And make sure you have the smaller, rounder pegs on the top, which is where the pilot seat slots in. I had a friend of mine accidentally do this the wrong way around, but he's turned it into a rather cool looking automaton version with the gun on top and just the crab legs. And I really do like that, and I'm tempted to do that in my second one, as I'm not really the biggest fan of the Triarchs. But there we go, building our Triarch Stalker. So we've got specific ways for certain components to go. So his left arm is on the controls, and his right arm just slots in, pressing the buttons. We got the side panels going on there at the bottom. There are 2 other components that are slightly similar, so 3 and 5. They must go on a certain way as well to make your control console. And like I said, these 2 pieces are very identical. But just make sure you have them the right way around for when you glue everything together. Then we got our legs, which go into a rather static pose, but they still look pretty cool. And we got a little bit of posability with the claw arms. It's saying not to glue them, which would be pretty cool because we can then change the pose. And this is a model that doesn't actually require a base, so we're free to pose on models as we want. Then we got our guns. So the main gun it tells us to build with is the particle caster. Not the best gun like most of the other particle weapons. It's good against low armor, low toughness infantry. But we've also got the heat ray, which is brilliant against vehicles, and probably my favourite, the twin heavy Gauss cannon. Then we got a tutorial for using stratagems, or the advanced rule for stratagems. The basic stratagems, which are command reroll, fire, overwatch, and counter-offensive. And then we get a tutorial about stratagems. So stratagems require command points, and there's a nice big spread page on the back, which I'll show in a minute, of all of the command point tokens. And then we have the Destroyer Assault, so continuing the previous battle. We have 2 battle mats, but we are free to place the terrain, and it's pretty much the same as last time, but we don't have the Overlord on the Necron side. We do have 2 Crypto Thralls, a Plasmancer, Reanimator, 10 Warriors, and 2 squads of 3 Scarabs. It's not really a Destroyer Assault. I think that should have been the last mission. I think they need to really look at their titles and do some proofreading on these magazines a bit better. But here we have a nice supply of tokens, so glue these down to a pizza card and then cut them out. I'll be doing that on my own time. At 53, we'll complete our Triarch Stalker. So this frame is parts of the seating area and the weapons. So with the previous issue you can build the legs, but you do need both issues in order to complete the rest of the model. We do have the tail piece there as well, the spine, the armor plating for the cockpit area, and all the different guns. So we learn about Warzone Vigilus, we paint our Stalker, and then we can deploy it in a new battle. So we've got quite a lot of background in this issue, so that's pretty cool. So the different war zones we now visit Vigilus Warzone, which is the big plot point on currently for 40k. So we've got GZ cults, Chaos Space Marines, and Orcs. Of course, the battle where Calgar falls, but then crosses the Rubicon Primaris and returns. We've got a bit of background about the different Adepta Sororitas vehicles, most of them on the Rhino chassis. But we have the Exorcist, which is probably one of my favourite tanks in all of 40k, because it's literally a tank with a giant organ on, and the organ fires missiles. And here we see we've got the Immolator, which is another Rhino variant. It has twin heavy flamers on top, can also be swapped for multi-melters or heavy bolters. It has a new front pintle heavy bolter, which is an update. Never used to have the front heavy bolter, but it's quite nice. The Exorcist also has the front heavy bolter, as I believe they share a similar base chassis, but they have a different top frame. The Castigator is the new battle tank. It's the Sisters' response to the Predator. I've always wanted to add a Predator to my Sisters as an allied attachment, and now I get the chance to do it. So I'm quite tempted to pick up one of those at some point as well. And then we got the good old standard Rhino. Other vehicles are the Paragon Warsuits, which are walkers. Basically a giant exosuit. The Sister sits inside and controls the arms with heavily armoured legs. So her legs will just sit on top here, and then after that it's all mechanical. We got a short story, Slaughter in the Rift. So this is a story featuring, looks like the chaos of the Black Legion, set in the Necron Gauntlet, so ties into our previous piece of information on the Warzone Vigilus. And we have the last of our orders, Majoris. So we got the Order of the Bloody Rose, which is one of our larger sister orders, and that is a really nice piece of artwork there. So we see I've forgotten the name of that one. Dialogus, who basically is reading prayers and getting it voxed out towards everybody. We got a Sister Hospitaller there, healing a wounded sister. Another Sister Hospitaller there. And plenty of other battle sisters, simulacrums here, there, and pretty much everywhere. So moving on to painting. So we are painting the legs fully in lead belcher with 3 coats. Just avoid your contact areas. Picking out some of the armor plates with Runord Brass, and the rest with Abaddon Black. Moving on to the cockpit, we're picking out the pilot in Runord Brass and Canoptic Alloy. We're then picking out gaps and cable straps with lead belcher on the guns. Washing all the lead belcher areas with non-oil. Dry brushing all the black areas with Dawnstone. So there are quite a bit of areas. Most of the gun and the pilot is actually base coated with Abaddon Black, should I say, before we move on. We're then dry brushing, Mini Merlin. Dry brushing the entirety of the black areas with Dawnstone before going in with a brush and tidying up some of the more sharper areas with Dawnstone layer. We're then washing Ryclone Flesh Shade over the Canoptic Alloy areas, Cryptic Armor Shade Gloss on the Runord Brass areas, before highlighting all of it with Stormhost Silver. Picking out all the areas that will be green later on with Corax white. Oops, sorry, that's down there. And then we're learning a technique about glazing. So we're going to glaze the legs so it fades from a darker colour down to a lighter colour. And we're using a heavily diluted version of Abaddon Black. Why we're not just using multiple layers of Nuln Oil, I do not know. But we are adding some cool battle damage. That's pretty cool. We're using our small layer brush and some Stormhost Silver to first edge highlight and then add some chips to show the claws being used to club their enemies. And then we have our finished Triax Stalker currently looking pretty good. Of course, mine will be different. And then we get our Necron stratagems. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Necron stratagems. There are plenty more, of course. I'm guessing there will be a second sheet of this. But we got Resurrection Protocols, Techno Oracular Targeting, Self-Destruction, and Relentless Onslaught. Then we got the rules for our Triax Stalker. He's got a degrading profile, so as he loses wounds, his profile gets slightly worse. Mostly his movement, his weapon skill, and his ballistic skill. So we've got our different guns. So the Heat Ray can be a dispersed shot, shorter range, but hits more. Well, focused, it's longer range and has a bit more punch. So it's perfect for taking out vehicles, while the dispersed version is perfect for taking out infantry. Particle Shredder, heavy 8, shrink 6, -1, 2 damage. So it's actually a little bit better than some of the other particle weapons, which have no AP. Twin Heavy Gauze Cannon, so heavy 6, strength 7, -3 and D3. And then the limbs are strength of user, so strength 7, with a -2 AP and 3 damage. Then we have a mission which features, of course, the Triarch against the Sisters. So we're using 2 mats again. Pretty much all the Sisters plus all the Mechanicum. Against an Overlord, Technomancer, Plasmancer, 10 Warriors, 5 Immortals, 2 Cryptophils, and the Stalker. So there we have issue 53. Oh, I forgot. We have a foldout featuring the Fracture of Baal-Tarn. So this was the second of the Gathering Storm series, which saw the birth of a new elder god, the Incarn, or the god of the dead. Yvraine rose to power, one of the foremost psychers and leaders of the Eldari, and secret wife of Rabute Kellerman. We then have her loyal bodyguard, the Vizarch. And then we got a bit more about the actual Battle of Baal-Tarn itself. Some more players. Prince Uriel of the Anden, one of my favourite characters, Eldrad, and Jane Zar, the Phoenix Lord. Okay then, moving on to our final issue. We've got 54 with all our final Sisters Battle models. Oof, there we have it. So we have another full set of flying stands, so you're bound to have a few of these left over, as we only need 5 and we've had 9 so far. We got our 5 32mm bases for our battle system models, 128 for the Repentia, and 125 for the Archoflagellant. And here we have the same frame that we had in issues 46. It's still a rather good frame, loads of components, loads of detail, and I really can't wait to get these all painted up. So here we have our issue. So we've got reinforcements to the Adepta Sororitas, our updated paint guide, and stratagems. Sweet. So we got a table chart for injuries and grudges on our Battle Sisters, and by the looks of things, this issue is dedicated a lot to building and painting. So Much like our Space Marines and Necron ones, this is just a basic table chart saying where our sisters suffered injuries. So we do this for our characters, heroes, and then just generic squad members. Oh, and as usual, one issues form the pieces. And much like I thought in issue 46, we are using the bare-headed heads on these girls, because we used the helmeted heads on the previous ones. That's pretty cool. And same on the Seraphim, we're using the bare heads on them. And I don't know why it's showing the Seraphim Superior there. But we have our Repentia, who's using the alternate head. And then our Archoflagellant on the back there, who again has an alternate head to the previous one. And that's all our models built there, ready for some paint. So we're picking out a lot of details, much the same as previous ones. So we are painting the entire model with Abaddon Black, Corn Red on the inside of the robes, Mephiston Red on the outside of the robes, Mephiston Red on the back screen, Horn Fang Brown on all the leather, Lead Belcher on the guns and mechanical workings, Corax White on the face, the hair, rocks, and of course the Aquillas, Screaming Pink on Purity Seals, Rakoff Flesh on the parchment. Then we're doing Retributor armor and all the gold details. There aren't too much on these models. Next we're putting our shades on, so Agrax Earth Shade on the stones and parchment, Nolan Oil on pretty much everything else. Then Reichland Flesh Shade on the face and the gold. Edge highlighting all our silver and gold with Stormhost Silver. The red on the outer robes with Wild Rider Red. Same for the screen on the back. Picking out the edges of the Purity Seals with Pink Horror. Edge highlighting the face with Pallid Witch Flesh, so we can go back and do all our other sister models. And we're also picking out the parchment, the stone, and the beads with Pallid Witch Flesh. I do find Pallid Witch Flesh to be a little too overpowering on the faces. If you do get it looking a bit too overpowering, you can always knock it back with a little bit of Reichland Flesh Shade. See, here it looks a bit too chalky, so it looks like they tried to dry brush it on. Just take your time with it. Make sure you thin the paint quite a bit as well. Moving on then, we're looking at the Repentia. So picking out the face mask of Screaming Pink. That looks a bit more like Pink Horror. Painting white first, and the gold with White and Flesh Shade. Then we're picking out all the metal details. Screaming Pink, the bodysuits with Abaddon Black. Same for the cables on the flails. Cables and the stims with Mephiston Red. Flesh with Rakoff Flesh. Picking out the stones and parchment, then with Agrax Earthshade, Nolan Oil on the metal and red details. Before we pick out highlights with Stormhost Silver on all the metal and gold, Pallid Witch Flesh on the skin and stones, Wild Rider Red on the stims and cables, Pink Horror on the mask and Purity Seals, and then Pallid Witch Flesh, we are picking out a little bit of detail, picking out the all the scarring, which is pretty cool, so we can go back and do our previous model as well. And then for the bases, Astro Granite, Nolan Oil, and then we are dry brushing with Dawnstone, which is quite different because the Chaos in Premium Issue 1 were dry brushed with Corax White, so I was expecting the rest to be done the same, but nice that we're doing it all with Dawnstone. And there we have all our finished models, including the duplicate models from the previous issue. So that really does look a nice collection of models. Moving on, we have our stratagems for our Adepta Sororitas. So we got the Extremist Trigger Word, the Moment of Grace, Deadly Descent, and Defenders of the Faith. A tutorial there for using the stratagems. And then we have a War of Faith mission. So the Royal Warden leads Necrons against the Canonesses Adepta Sororitas forces. So Royal Warden, 10 warriors, 5 immortals, 3 scarabs, a wraith, and 5 fade ones. Canoness, 10 battle sisters, 5 seraphim, 4 repentia, 1 repentia superior, 3 arco flagellants, and the penitent engine. 2 battle mats, 3 objectives, and we got corner deployment zones. Pretty cool. And looking to the future, so we have some final piece of terrain for this game mat, which is a set of pipes. The only other piece of terrain left to come is our third and final reactor. We also get 2 new paints in issue 56, so Administratum Grey, so we'll be finally highlighting all the greys up to an extra bit of brightness. And we've got Baylor Brown, so I'll be using on all our levers. Lore-wise, we get the background on the Iron Hands and new mission objectives. We learn about the Officio Assassinorum, and we learn to paint highlights. That's a point. I didn't see if we highlighted the armour anything. I don't think we did. No, we didn't. So yeah, that would be my theory about highlighting the armour with Calgar Blue pretty much correct, because we would have done it with Dawnstone already. Right, I'll just bring everything in and I'll give you my final thoughts. Whew, getting warm down here as we put the Ray-Ban on, so my studio is getting a little bit on the toasty side. But we are nearly finished. So my final thoughts for this delivery, it's a pretty cracking delivery. It's nice to have our big centerpiece model for the Necrons, the Triarch Stalker. And I can't wait to paint mine in these Saltec colours. And we have the final frame of battle system models, so it's quite nice to add them to our collection as well. And the in-depth paint guide is pretty good, actually. It's a lot more detailed than I thought it would be, which is pretty good. So, our new paints, Pallid Witch Flesh. As I said, it could be a bit on the stark side, especially contrasting against the Ragnar Flesh Shade even. But it's a pretty good highlighter for a lot of colours. So we'll be using it on our parchment, our flesh, and rocks and skulls, etc. Dawnstone is another good paint. I've pretty much always had this colour in my collection back in the olden days when it used to be known as Codex Grey. But it's a pretty good grey, highlighting for pretty much anything really. I use it as an extreme highlight on soft blacks, which I use Corvus Black, Eshin Grey, and then Dawnstone as an extreme highlight. But for most of the stuff we're doing in this magazine, we'll be using Dawnstone first and an extreme highlight with Administratum Grey. So it's a good colour that can do various different things. Lore and information wise, we've got a good lot in one issue and not a lot in another, so it's a pretty even balance, I think. All in all, I'll give it probably... I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 for this delivery. It's a pretty good delivery. We do get not a lot, but that's because we have a rather nice big model to deal with. So there we have the unboxing for Imperium Delivery 14. And yeah, definitely a good one. So all what's left for me to do is to thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe for more mad content. And I will see you next time. Goodbye.